Picture this. Me, Reese Witherspoon, in London, ordering fish and chips so often they might start wrapping me in paper. I'm traveling with my Wells Fargo Autograph Journey card, so I earn rewards wherever I book travel. 5 times points with hotels, 4 times with airlines, 3 times on restaurants and other travel, and 1 point on other purchases. Imagine getting rewarded for eating a toad in the hole. Wait, what is a toad in a hole?
Visit wellsfargo.com/autograph journey. Terms apply.
Welcome to Farm Your Daily, a field-forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Your Daily, we look at ways new farmers are getting support with Kristiana Coutu with Iowa State's Beginning Farmers Center. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at FieldForwardPod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we are going to look at a continued conversation for beginning farmers and ranchers with Kristiana Coutu of the Iowa State University Center for Ag Law and Taxation, as well as the director of the Beginning Farmer Center. Kristiana, thank you so much for joining us on Farm Here Daily. And first, can you just tell me about the Beginning Farmer Center and what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on here today, David. I really appreciate it. So the Beginning Farmer Center is part of Iowa State University Extension, and it is a center that is designed, like its name suggests, to support beginning farmers with educational resources that can help when beginning farmers are thinking about starting an operation or whether in their first few years of operating. We provide resources on our website as well as other educational opportunities such as conferences to get that information out there. In addition, we also focus on providing education on farm transition or farm succession planning because as we know, access to land is a critical issue for beginning farmers. And so by supporting successful land transitions from one generation to the next, whether it's to another family member or even to a farmer who's not part of the family, that can help create an opportunity for beginning farmers to have access to land and be able to farm.
Just to clarify, because I have a bunch of questions about this topic, but why is this specifically linked with the Center for Ag Law and Taxation location? What makes the two compatible and helps promote that idea of beginning farmers?
I think the two do go hand in hand. It's interesting. We have beginning farmers, if we look at it on one end of the spectrum, and then we have, exiting farmers or farmers that are thinking about possibly retiring or transitioning their farm on the other end of the spectrum. And the two really do go hand in hand when we're thinking about opportunities for beginning farmers. In Iowa and honestly throughout the country, access to land is typically cited as the biggest barrier that beginning farmers face, or aspiring farmers who are wanting to get into farming. And so when we think about a farm succession plan or a farm transition plan, it can take a number of different, it can look a number of different ways, but we're thinking about if someone's wanting to get out of farming or retire, or thinking about what will happen after they're done farming, what will happen to that operation, and also what will happen to that land. Those are all critical pieces to consider when we're thinking about making sure that beginning farmers have some access.
Speaking of barriers, something I think immediately is farming is really a business of margins, and many beginning farmers will not have good access to, as you mentioned, the land, but also markets and the ability to spread themselves out enough to take margin or marginal amounts of income in that way. What is a factor when you speak with people about how they're either overcoming it or questions they're asking when they look at that difficult side of starting up their own business?
Yeah, those are all questions that are important questions that are a piece of the puzzle. When we think about getting started in farming, there's so many factors that we're considering. Access to markets, access to capital, access to land, like I mentioned. And so I think that we have beginning farmers who are looking at things, in different ways. We have some that are trying to look at opportunities that may be a little different than, maybe current mainstream markets, and looking at different income streams, and considering how to put together a farm business plan that will sustain and may have a little bit of differences, as opportunities for different income streams as well.
So, when taking that into example of operating different income streams, what is that push, especially when you deal with it from a legal perspective, and there's a variety of hoops and issues that small business owners have to face in order to get a competitive level of tax benefits or tax returns or ability to spend like a business as opposed to just a private owner.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so if we look at it from a legal perspective, um, especially when you have farmers who are thinking about maybe diversifying income streams and including, maybe things such as value added products or things such as agritourism, in addition to the sale of whatever crop they're producing. Those all come with different legal considerations. And so we do get those questions a lot, because when you're thinking about any of those different structures or business opportunities, liability comes along with them that are, you have to consider individually. And so we do have farmers, when they're looking at that, thinking about, okay, do we need to set up, for example, an LLC, or potentially even a couple of different LLCs, to make sure that we are protecting ourselves from a liability standpoint, especially when either engaging in activities that have a little more liability, like some of the value added products that might be going direct to consumers, or when we're considering agritourism, which brings folks right onto the farm. That obviously adds a whole other level of liability.
You mentioned if a farmer decides to work with a value added or specialty markets, can a beginning farmer in today's day and age actually survive without specifically going into those value added markets or specialty markets? Because it seems like a pretty tough call to make, to be able to go directly into some of the conventional versions of farming.
Yeah, I guess I use this phrase a lot. Anybody who's around me probably gets sick of hearing it, but I really think it to be true. I am often say there's many different ways to farm. And so I don't think there's any absolutes as far as you can only do it this way and be profitable, or you can only do it that way. There's so many factors that are going into it. Some of the additional, different ways, or different operating streams that can be income streams that can be added. Those are just some of the tools and potential that for some operations that will work. Other operations, just depending on how they're set up or what type of land they have or where they are, those may not be the opportunities that are beneficial. So it's, you kind of you see it all over the board. There's folks who are going into maybe a family operation or even starting out on their own that are doing it more traditionally, but then there's other people who are also, lots of people who are also adding on these different income streams as well.
So you work with beginning farmers, talking about how they can have support, do better. What is something that is a bright spot within this economy or within the community of agriculture and that topic of beginning farmers and maybe some folks trying to get involved?
So the bright spot for me is seeing the interest that is there. And honestly, I don't think it's going down. I think it's increasing. I think we are in a time right now where more and more people are being interested in potentially farming. And it's not always individuals who have come directly from a farming background. Many have, some have not. And I think it's also really interesting and a bright spot for me to see. We're talking about beginning farmers. We're not just talking about young farmers right out of college, who are thinking about going into a farming operation. I mean, we are seeing that, and I love that. But we're also seeing folks who may be like second generation or second career individuals who have done something else for a number of years and now are going back into farming. And that's fascinating for me because they're also bringing the experience and the education that they received in other, whether it's other businesses or other careers, to the farming operation, which just gives a whole different lens on it.
So, with that aspect of it, what you were just describing there, that interest, let's go over a way folks interested can find out more through the Beginning Farmer Center. Is it just events? Because you mentioned you guys did those, or is there a assortment of documents or help that they could just find online?
Yeah. So one thing they can do is go right to our Beginning Farmer website. That's a great place to start. It's beginningfarmer.iastate.edu. And on that website, there is an accumulation of resources, and we're adding more all the time, that folks can take a look at and start looking into some of the things that they might be interested in. There's also within that resources we've created, but then also, I mean, there's many resources out there from Iowa State, but also and beyond. And so we're trying to accumulate those all in one place too. So if you go to that website, there's links to other, information that other people have created as well, and that can be helpful. Folks can also feel free to call me at the Beginning Farmer Center. We're really happy to have the conversation as far as what they're interested in and how maybe we can help point them in the right direction to help get them the resources and what they need.
So we mentioned at the beginning, we were talking about some of the barriers that are involved with it. We talked about a bright spot you see within the industry. As a whole, then, what do you think is necessary as someone who works in this? What is something you think needs to be worked on or done as we move towards giving more access to folks who want to start stat farming, who have that dream?
Yeah, I think having it be a priority in a lot of different areas is helpful. Not only for getting resources out there, but also it helps to build the community of beginning farmers so that there's opportunities to, connect with other people who are doing the same thing and learn from each other. I think it's always important if there's, whether it's state or federal or both, that, legislation is beginning farmers are being considered. And I think that's always helpful as well. And again, just making sure that when we're thinking about agricultural in general and the resources that we're creating or the information we're putting out there, that we're always considering that beginning farmers are the information that's important to the general agricultural public is really important, but then also thinking about how things specifically impact beginning farmers with some of that.
Kristiana is with the Beginning Farmer Center, director over there for that. Before I let you go, though, you do work as senior counsel with the Center for Ag Law and Taxation, and you guys have a farm transition conference coming up. It kind of is the opposite end of what we were just talking about with beginning farmers, reaching the end of your time in the business. Could you tell me about that conference and what you guys are all up to there?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an annual conference that the Beginning Center puts on, and I love it. It's 2 days of education on farm succession planning, farm estate and succession planning, and farm transition planning. Over the 2 days, it's pretty comprehensive and pretty broad in the sessions that we have, and the speakers who are all experts in the area of farm transitions, understand farming operations, and the information that's provided it kind of covers the range from really technical tax and legal issues that we discuss, but also communication and how to face tough family conversations or how to approach conversations about farm transition in a business like standpoint, especially even so when we're including either family members or when we're thinking about transitioning to a non-family member. So that conference is going to be happening this year on February 5th and 6th in Ankeny. But we also have an online option for people who can't get there in person. Although I think it's best if anybody can attend in person to do so, because the comments we constantly receive are that the educational content is great. People really appreciate it, but they also really appreciate the opportunity to be in the room with other people who are facing the same challenges when we're thinking about farm succession and farm transition planning, and hearing the questions they're asking, and just knowing by being in the same room that, they're facing a lot of the same challenges.
Kristiana Coutu is the director of the Beginning Farmer Center, also with the Iowa State University Center for Ag Law and Taxation. Kristiana, thanks so much for joining us on Farm Here Daily.
Thanks so much, David. You have a great day.
Absolutely. And we will have a link to the Farm Transition Conference in the description of the podcast. And this is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.